talking about, I think a really important topic. Hey, Jordan, about like what happens when you kind of like don't fit the norm of the industry, which I think a lot of people feel, but don't hear about or know what to do about or think it's just them. And so Laura and I obviously have been talking about this behind the scenes. I don't know if I said this, she's one of my long time clients. And so we've been talking about this behind the scenes a lot. And it just felt like a really relevant conversation to bring to all of you because I have personally experienced this. Obviously, it's why I have a one-on-one business model and figured out how to do it a different way. Laura has experienced this. And so just kind of putting words to this feels really important. And Laura is joining us from Australia. So that is why we are a little bit later today. So she did not have to be up at, what would that be, 2 a.m. or something?
I think it was like 1 or 2 a.m.
Yeah, that's a no for us. So give us just like a little rundown, Laura, of who you are, what you do. Oh, before I forget, I have 2 things to tell you guys. One, obviously, we always do giveaways for live streams. So if you're with us today and if you make any comment, just like, hi, whatever, you're entered to win $100 gift card just because we know you can spend your time anywhere and we appreciate it being with us. And then the other thing I want to say, we have chosen a golden ticket recipient. So I know we said we were going to announce that today. So it is official. They have been chosen. They have been notified. But next week on the 12th, Sabrina, the new golden ticket recipient, and I are actually going to be on live at 1. So y'all can meet her and hear about the process too. So just wanted to say that because I know I've gotten asked that a few times today. So they have been chosen and they have been notified. So that is that $100 gift card also up for grabs. Okay, Laura, back to you. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
All right. Okay. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And yes, as you said, it's 6 a.m. here in Australia. So there is a little bit of noise happening in my kitchen with the kids and everyone getting ready, but hopefully they'll be on good behavior. My name's Laura O'Hagan. I'm a mindset coach and business strategist. And I work with coaches to really help them start, grow, and scale their coaching business. So I'm helping clients get fully booked, hit those first 10K months, through to clients who are really scaling up into multiple six figures in their business. My background is in business and corporate accounting and corporate strategy and all of those types of things. And I've really decided to bring that to my business and help people where I could see that difference be made in their business. So that's just a little synopsis. I have 2 kids. I'm based on the Gold Coast in Australia. So the funny accent, that explains that. But yeah, that's me in a very short.
Perfect. Yeah. Awesome. Hey, Julianne. Jordan said this conversation is so applicable to so many of us. Can't wait to hear about the golden ticket. Oh, awesome. Hey, Catherine. So good to see you. So yeah, I think this conversation really is so applicable to so many people, but I think that, the industry doesn't really profit off this conversation, I guess is a good way to say that. So it makes sense that it's not always the thing that we're having, but let's, kind of just start at the beginning. So, Laura, you and I started working together. Oh my gosh, 4 years ago?
3 years ago, I think
years.
around November, October 2019, okay. Before the world changed.
Oh my gosh, right? Okay, so you were at about 5K.
Yeah.
Around about there when we started working together. Is that right?
Yeah. So I just kind of hit my first 5K month.
Yep.
And I've been listening to your podcast and I was like, she's the person I'm hiring next. So when I hit that milestone, I was like, I'm going to step into that future version of me. And that's when we started working together.
I just want to say this because I think it's really helpful for people to hear, but so Laura had been listening to the podcast. I don't even think I'd ever seen like your name on anything or you know what I mean? I didn't know this was a thing. And I remember getting an email from you and you were basically like, hey, cool. So you're my next coach for sure. We can have a call, but I'm pretty much ready to go. And so the only reason I want to sidestep to say that is because you just never know who's watching, who your next client is and when they're going to kind of show up. It's not like I had a radar to be like, oh, Laura is about to hire me. That was not a thing, but she was, and was very decisive about it. So
yeah, just appeared out of the woodwork for you. Whereas for me, it had been such a decision process.
Yes, exactly. So I just want you to kind of take us through what happened. Cause I think whether good or bad, we'll talk about that. Like you had really, really fast success. And let's just kind of talk about what that looked like. Hey, Morgana. Oh, hey,
Yeah.
Shantae. Such a good reminder. You never know. Exactly.
Such a good reminder. Okay, so yeah, like Lacey said, I just had this weekend, one weekend in 2019. It was the Easter weekend, and I realized I'd been like keeping myself small, kind of not really going all in. And I just woke up on that weekend and I was like, I'm done. And I just like changed everything I was doing in my business. Just like had that moment. I know some people sort of, it's a more of a gradual process where I just woke up and I was like, I'm done doing what I'm doing. And so I had two young kids. My youngest was, I think, just one at the time. And so I had about 2 days a week dedicated to my business. And I really just, in that moment, doubled down. Like I was listening to the podcast, you were working with Monica at the time. And I was just like, I'm just going to pretend I'm Monica and I'm going to do everything that Lacey says. Like that's literally what I was doing. And I just decided to do everything that everyone online was talking about that I wasn't doing. So I did that. And within 6 months, as you said, I kind of hit my first 5K month.
On 2 days a week, you guys. Like,
literally like, one of the biggest things has been like the limited time I've had in my business while my kids were little. And what's so great now is they're a bit bigger now, but I learned how to grow my business on very little time. So I still am able to do that now, even though it's not as much necessity now. So I hit that first 5K month. I hired you and got to work, just doubled down. And from there, I think within a few months, maybe in the new year, I kind of hit my first 10K month. It was actually we nearly tripled. So we hit 14K cash month was the first 5-figure month, which was so exciting. And I was laughing with Lacey before, it felt like forever to get there. But once you kind of look back on that journey, it did really happen really fast. So then within the year of working with Lacey, I hit my first 6-figure year. And then the following 12 months, I hit a multiple 6-figure year. So that growth, as we said, was just really fast and really kind of exponential. It really felt like that at the time. Should I start going into what happened next, or
no, let's stop there for a second. But Julian says right there with you, Laura, working in small pockets of time is now the norm. Yep, totally.
So good.
I mean, kind of same. I mean, not really, because I have obviously full-time help, but I have been experiencing that more than ever, obviously, lately. So I really get that. Like, you got like a 40-minute nap and you're like, I'm like amazed at how much I get done now. But anyway, so I think what's helpful to see here is like, yes, that growth was really, really quick. And I think at points it felt really quick, but I think there were plenty of times where it didn't feel quick too. And so like, it's helpful to note that, and because you had kind of mentioned that quickly, but I think it's really helpful to just say like, you're kind of like doing the dream, so to speak, in the coaching industry. Like you hit a 5K month, 3 months later, you hit your first 14K, then you're on to 6-figure year, then you're on to multiple 6-figure, like that. First of all, one, that trajectory is like amazing and you're kind of like living the dream. And then also a lot of people in the coaching industry would even feel like that was slow because you're supposed to hit like $1 million in 2.5 seconds. You know what I mean?
And that's the funny thing, like, especially after I hit that 6-figure year, I felt a lot of pressure. And I know we spoke about this, like to continue to prove kind of that I was doing amazing things and I was successful. And as you said, like, I remember sometimes I was like, this is taking forever. When you're in it and you're kind of doing that, not grind, but like you're doing the work.
This is the day to day.
You're in it and it, you don't see those things kind of showing up for you. I remember sometimes I was going to Lacey and I'm like, is this actually working? Like, come on, like, when's it going to happen? And I was
like, it's happening, right? It's happening. But it's hard when you're in it.
Right. Because I think like between kind of the 5 and the 14K, I kind of like hit 8K and I kind of knew like, okay, that's the start of like a 6-figure year. I could kind of see it, but I was like, this should be happening faster. I should be further along, which we know is like so toxic. And that was such a game-changing moment when you helped me see that. But yeah, it did feel slow. And it did feel like, compared to a lot of the industry, you know, like I didn't hit $1 million in 30 seconds kind of thing. When you're in it, you can't always see how incredible what you're doing is. And then you look back and suddenly with hindsight, you're like, whoa, like things happen really quickly there.
Exactly. Yeah, Julianne said, welcome to your new normal. I feel that big time. Jordan said, yes, it feels like it's taking forever right now.
Yes.
I mean, the thing that you have to remember sometimes is like a 6-figure year takes a fucking year.
Right. It takes
a
year.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like, and our brains are just like, you know what I mean? Like so it could be working that whole year. Yeah. Erica says that 8K to 10K bridge feels like mud. Totally get it. I think that you totally felt like that at the time, didn't you?
Yeah. Cause I was like, it's not, it's so crazy. These numbers are so arbitrary, but I'm like, but it's not 10K. Right. And it just felt like, yeah, it just felt like it was taking forever. And I like that idea of like walking through mud. You're kind of like, ugh. Right. That's how it feels when you're doing the work in your business sometimes, because you're doing the work and you're trusting that the result's coming.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly, Morgana. She said the experience of speed in the online biz space is wild. Exactly, which we're going to talk about that because I think it's absolutely insane how this has gone. And then Jordan says her 10K to 20K feels slow. So we'll kind of get to that part with Laura too. But yeah, so basically you had all of this success, and what you mentioned before that I want to just kind of like go into is like how much pressure it felt to maintain it. So you basically were, oh, there we go. That was going to drive me crazy. You're basically doubling year over year. And then it just feels like you have no choice but to keep doing that, right? Like it's almost like, well, or better even, you know?
Right. And my income was kind of like, my monthly income was doubling like every 6 months kind of thing. Like when I hit that 14K, I kind of, in my head, I was like, okay, I've hit 5-figure months. And then 6 months later, I had, the 20K month. And then, it's just this idea of like, okay. And then when you're, sharing that with your audience, like I'm very open and transparent with my audience around what I'm doing. And I really use that to inspire and show what's possible, because I always just believe I'm just your average kind of person. Like there's nothing special about me, which again, when I first started, I really thought there must be something special about all these people that are creating those results. So I
totally remember those conversations.
I'm like, yes. But they've got something I don't have just inherently. So I've really like taken that as part of what I want people to see is, I believe we're all extraordinary in our own way, but that's something I believe, but I see myself as a very ordinary kind of person living a very ordinary life. Because I have 2 young kids, I'm not doing the digital nomad thing. I'm not traveling the world, right? I'm just living a very normal life. But because I shared my results with my audience as they were happening, I did kind of feel a bit of this pressure. Okay, well, like, okay, cool. Like now I've told them like I've hit my first 20K month. Do I have to come back and do more? And I did continue to kind of create more, but I started to notice that it was coming from this energy of like making sure people knew how good I was in terms of like proving myself versus what I truly wanted. That started to get a bit lost in there.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you, Shayna. Shayna should love this conversation. Totally. I think that this is just like the real stuff. I think that it's easy to like look at those results and be like, oh, well, you must have felt like you were crushing it the whole time and it must have been easy for you and whatever. And it's like, yeah, it's great to grow that fast, but there is so much intensity and pressure that can sometimes come with that fast growth, because it feels like, whether it's true or not, there's this expectation from people or your audience or whatever to maintain or better that. And I think that's what's so crazy about our space is like, that's not normal business. I mean, if any of y'all actually tell me if you guys remember this, but I've done this like 3 times on different lives. So if any of y'all have been part of it, but like I always draw out that like graph of business where it's like business usually looks like this, and it's just like, are you trending upward? But like we kind of don't give ourselves the grace for that in the online space. So I think that that's just the issue with all of this, is that we're pretending like it's not like real business to a certain extent, right?
Can I just add something there?
Yeah.
Like as an accountant, so my background is an accountant. I did accounting because I was like, it's the language of business, and I really wanted to like be in that space of really understanding the strategy and the language of business. But it's so funny as an accountant, right? When I used to work in corporate strategy and like budgeting and growth and all of that stuff, you'd like be doing pretty well if you're like plus 10%, right? Like that isn't what we were kind of like moving the needle on each year in our big corporate businesses. It's like, can we even achieve 10% growth in the next year kind of thing? And often it was like less than that. And I think, and it's so funny, like when I took my statements to my accountant last year to do like my end of year tax return, he's like his mind is just like, because he's a very traditional accountant.
Yeah.
He's like, I took the report and he's like, how many hours do you work? Like what? And like year on year, like it was insane to him. And so I think that's just so important, because it almost feels normalized in this space. But if you go to a cafe or, I know you don't have Woolworths, but like, I don't know, maybe Walmart or, a supermarket chain or something like that, they're not doubling their businesses every year. Like that's just not normal. And I think that's, like you said, like that's what sometimes gets lost here, is like, this is out of this world kind of that we're seeing here, which is amazing with the opportunity, but also just remembering that's not what a lot of businesses are really growing at.
Totally. Jordan said, I feel like y'all are celebrities. And yes, that there's something that other people have, or a personality trait. And totally that's like a thing to shift, because Laura for sure felt like that. And like, I think that was one of the biggest things you shifted that helped your growth, is to really not like believe there was like nothing different about you, or that there wouldn't be anything different about you once you hit that or whatever.
Right. I think things mindset shifts, that was one of them. Sorry to cut you off there.
No, it's okay. Sometimes I want to grab the comments before they disappear, but Jess remembers my infamous graph. Catherine totally relates to you. Jess said online biz numbers are wacky compared to normal biz, and it can be a mindset challenge for sure. It really is. Julianne said, yes, it feels normal in the online space, but if you have a conversation outside of that, they totally don't get where you're coming from. Yeah. Oh, so good. Catherine said this really hits home today. Thank you. Good. So all the wackiness, all the pressure, you've like already done all these things that are just like mind-blowing. You kind of realize they're mind-blowing, but also feel like you have to continue to blow everyone's mind, right?
Yeah.
So then kind of take us through what happens next.
Yeah. So basically because I'd seen those results in my business, my brain was just like, okay, well, like we got to double again. Like we've, double from 100 to 200. Like this is what it means to kind of, continue to be like a leader and be seen, it's just all this, murky thinking, but that's kind of how I felt, or how I was thinking at the time. So I continued to scale my business. I launched a group coaching program. I did that. I hit my first 30K month. Like I just kind of kept going. But then after that, that's where I had this kind of like moment. So this was even like over a year ago now, like sort of mid last year. After I'd launched that program, I was doing it. And then, you're thinking about like launching again and all of this stuff. And I'm like, this isn't what I want to be doing. Just had this moment, and like I'd achieved so many of the goals I'd set for myself too. So I had this kind of like two-pronged thing, I think, happening at once, which was like the motivation to kind of like keep hitting new goals kind of dropped away a little bit. Like I kind of reached this point where I'm like, I've done everything I set out to do, which is a very confronting place to be.
Very confronting.
And so I had that happen. And then I also had this realization that I was building a business that kind of was moving me away from what I actually wanted to be doing. So I kind of had those two things kind of come at me at the same time, and just this realization that like, do I actually want to like be doubling my business every year? Like, is that what I really want? Is that going to work in my life? Is that kind of keeping me aligned with kind of why I started this in the first place? All of that kind of came up at that point. Yeah, that was kind of like the next stage.
So what I think is really interesting there is that, and you can maybe speak to this a little bit, Laura, too, but I think what people don't realize is that when you're scaling, let's use that in quotations, because I'm like so over that word at this point because it means 100 things to 100 people, right? But like when you're scaling, what often happens is that the vast majority of your time starts getting spent marketing rather than serving people. And if that's not your favorite part of your business, which for some people it is, and that's fucking great, right? But if that's not your favorite part of your business, it's easy to get disillusioned with your business pretty quickly because so much of your energy is going into like, okay, we got to launch the next thing. And what's the launch plan? And what's this? And what's that? And like, what's all the content for it? And like, that kind of stuff versus like what you had been doing up to that point was like being on a lot of coaching calls, right? And you had to kind of pull back a lot of your one-on-one to have the space to add these programs, launch all that kind of stuff. And so I think like that's important to say because I think that sometimes it just seems like scaling is this magical land where everything happens for you and you don't have to like be on calls all day or something. And it's like to a certain extent, yes, but the work is just different work. It's not like less work. And if you don't like the different work, that can be a real tough pill to swallow, right?
For me, one of the things that started to niggle at me a little bit, and this is just me, this is not everyone, was having a team, right? And the idea of kind of like building out a team to scale and all of this, and just kind of like having those built-in costs into my business and like just how that kind of felt, and like just the process of like managing multiple people in a team, that wasn't really what I wanted.
Or want to spend your time doing.
Right. And to spend my time doing. And for some people it 100% is. I know some people have the vision of like the team and, you know, or an agency and all of that. And like, that's their vision. But for me, that just wasn't my vision. It started to pull away from me, you know, and we've spoken about this before, like being able to dial up things when I want to and being able to dial them down when, you know, it's school holidays or, you know, whatever, or I just want to work with less clients. Like it started to feel like almost like it was becoming this like snowball kind of thing. And that was
it's like ironic because we want it to get bigger than us, but then when it gets bigger than us, we're like, wait a second, like that, right? So it's like weird because it's like that I want it both ways kind of feeling can come up.
Right, exactly. So for me, that was when I started to realize, like, I was almost starting to see like, okay, like I'm going to be a manager and I'm going to be managing this team and I'm going to be doing launching and all of those things. And like you said, like I started this and like moved out of corporate because I wanted to see like the direct impact of the work I was doing with the people I was doing it with. And I was just seeing that was starting to not kind of be central. And for me, again, this isn't everyone, but this is just for me. For me, that was so important. And I just started to have that realization, like I'm moving further away from what I actually set out to do initially and what I enjoyed the most, right? Because I'm in this energy of like proving and wanting to kind of keep up that trajectory, it's actually moving me away from what I most want.
Yeah, so good. Catherine said, thank you for your honesty and transparency, Laura. Not very many people online are talking about all of this. So good. Jordan said, totally agree on team. I'd rather have lower revenue with good profit margin versus higher revenue and lower margin because of team costs, which Jordan, fantastic point. Like, again, sometimes scaling is very expensive and that's what people miss out on paying attention to too, where it's like you were making 30K or no, I guess 30K was maybe part of the group program, but like you were
Yeah.
in the 20s with just
Yeah,
one-on-one
exactly.
without having all the expenses that come with building out a program and all this stuff. So it's like it started to feel not worth it in a energetically, but like literally financially.
Right. Like I was really struggling because of that thing we talked about with like the almost like the two trains coming together. The one around like, well, I've hit all my financial goals
Yep.
and not having that financial motivation. It really made me be like really clear on like, does this even make sense for me to be doing? Like you said, like if I'm hitting 20, 25K cash months with you know, a VA and me working one-on-one versus kind of building that out. And again, this isn't everyone's experience, but for me,
Yeah, exactly.
I just recognize like I'd rather be doing the work I love and have that higher profit margin. And it can mean slowing down that top line growth. That felt like that right decision for me versus feeling like I almost felt like I'd always be running to like keep on top of expenses and things like that.
Yeah.
Which again, I've seen with different clients too, where the expenses kind of build out just as much as the revenue when they're scaling.
Yes, that's such a good point too that Josh just made, which she said, I think a lot of people think that scaling is upfront work, like build it once and it's done, but that's typically not true either, which is very true. It's like, is this the work you want to keep doing, managing the team ongoingly? It's not just, I mean, obviously team can get easier to manage over time, but it's still the job is to manage the team kind of, it's not, right? So I think that that's really important to say too. So I think like a bunch of things were sort of coming together at once. I think you had kind of started to have these realizations. I think you also were kind of feeling maybe like a little burnt out on that, like what's the next thing to prove. I think you also you were in another program where you kind of were like, wait, I'm in a scaled program and I don't necessarily love the feeling of that either. So like just kind of walk us through like how did those kind of all come together for you to just be like, nope, like the way the industry tells me to do this is like not what I'm doing, I'm out.
Yeah, I think it's easy to make it sort of sound like it was like an overnight thing, but it was probably like a 3-month process. But yeah, as you said, I joined a mastermind myself to kind of scale my business, and I was in like a scaled kind of mastermind, as you said. I ran my group coaching program and I obviously loved the people that were in there. I was really sold on, what we were delivering, and it was a great program. But it's funny, I had this conversation with you where I was just like, the part I love the most is when they like hop on and get coached individually, right? Like when we actually did the coaching on the coaching calls. So I kind of had that that realization starting to form there. I was in this program and I just realized like this just isn't, I just don't want to have a business like that business. Again, nothing wrong with it. And, I've got clients who are scaling through group and all of that, and that's amazing. It's really like what sings to you the most.
Yep.
And I just realized like this isn't what I want. And also the realization, like I couldn't kind of get that access in that program to the coach that I was hoping for. So that those kind of things happened. And realizing that I didn't need to kind of continue to prove myself. Like I think just that process of like making that shift, because I think initially the first 6-figure year was proving something to myself.
Yes.
Which, that served me to a certain point. And I kind of proved that to myself. And then I kind of went on and proved the next thing. And I was like, I don't need to keep proving, right? And because I kind of hit all those financial kind of goals that I had for myself, I just didn't feel like I needed to keep like running at it in that same way that I had been. So this was a bit of a murky process. Like Lacey will know, like it was kind of a bit of a dark night of the soul. Like I've built this thing and like, it's going really well and all of these things, but also like, I'm just starting to like, I don't want to go out and launch again. I don't want to like hire more team. I want my business to feel like I'm making that difference to the lives of, and business of my clients. And having that freedom and flexibility, which I really loved in terms of how I built my business. That's how I wanted to be spending my time, not necessarily, like I said, managing a team, launching, all of those things. And as someone who's more introverted, I think too, like
Yeah.
I love the intimacy that comes with this style of work. So there was all of those kind of things. And I think just going through the process, like, you know, thank you for tolerating me during that time, because I'm like showing up to the coaching calls. I'm like, I don't know what I want.
Well, I think it's important to say this from my perspective too, but I think I could really see at the time that you felt like you had a lot to prove. And I think I was trying to, you know, reflect that when possible. And I think even, you know, like seeing you kind of feel like, okay, and I need to like join this other thing and I need to figure out how to scale and I need to like, there was just a lot of intensity. But like, I think the thing that's important to see on that is like, as a coach, sometimes you just have to like hold your people while they learn the things and go through the things. Like if I had said to you, hey, I really think you just want to focus on one-on-one, like, you know, it's not like that would have landed at the time. Like you kind of had to have the experiences you had and get the support through them and through that like dark night of the soul to like feel so freaking grounded and certain about the choices you're making now. And so I just want to share that from that perspective too. Like I feel like a lot of coaches feel like they know best and they have to like force that on their client. And like you might be witnessing something, but like also one of the gifts you can give your clients is like not feeling like you always know better and being willing to like let that play out for them. You know, it wasn't like I was going to be like, well, I think one-on-one's the best and I can see that you think that's the best and I know better. So ... Like it was more like, I'll see what happens here. Like happy to support you through whatever. And like, obviously it's beautiful that like you kind of got to have the experience that makes you so grounded in what you're doing now, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, that's so true. I think like part of like, you know, the mix of coaching is knowing when to like provide that advice. And I think that clear guidance to your clients, and when you're there to like coach them and help them go on their own process. I love that you kind of drew that out.
Yep. And Jess said she needs a tattoo or forehead tattoo of I don't need to keep proving. Yeah.
Me too.
Don't we all, right? Okay, so Dark Night of the Soul, you kind of were like, the way the industry tells me to scale is not the way, which by the way, like I super get that. I have had that Dark Night of the Soul in my business too, of like, everyone says the only way to scale is group programs. I guess I'm just going to have to decide not to scale because like, I just don't fucking want to do that. And I think that's like you said, a hard realization. I think it's especially hard for the position that you were in where you had kind of achieved the dream, so to speak. And then you had to kind of be like, oh, the dream doesn't look how I thought it was. Now I have to, I don't think you had to like burn it all down because it's not like that, but I think you kind of had to be like willing to be like, what if I let all this extra shit go, which I think you did for a while.
Yeah, exactly. It takes like a level of courage to say no to what the industry's doing. And like I said,
it's more money to a certain
right. So, you know, like, and I recognize too, like, cool, like if I don't, you know, keep scaling this way, then my income is gonna slow down. Like it's not going to continue to grow at that same pace. Right. Which again, I had to sit with and, you know, be willing to kind of do. But when, you know, I have these notes that I made about things that, you know, are important to like having a business that you love, because I think we get to have both, right? We can create an exceptional income and have this business that we love. But for me, like coming back to like my values and what I wanted, that for me at this point, like if this had happened maybe when I'd hit 70K, I don't, I think that's a different conversation. Like, oh, I'm not going to do it anymore. Like, I think I got to a point where like, a lot of like all those financial needs and things had kind of been met. That I was just like, well, it's more important for me now. Like it's a bigger priority to be aligned with my values and living this life that I want. That's more important than continued fast revenue or income growth. Like I just kind of had to sit with that. And I think the courage that it takes to be like, the industry's got this narrative, right? Of like, one-on-one's not scalable. The only way to scale is this and all of this stuff. And then to be like, well, I just want to do my thing my way. Like that was a hard thing to kind of sit with, but that was ultimately where that kind of landed. I don't know if I answered the question there. Or
yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, and I think what's kind of fucked, but interesting is that actually, like, I agree with you that it actually does take courage. And I think that that's sort of the problem with our industry right now, is that we say we're here for like people to like get what they want and build their dreams and whatever, unless their dreams do not look like make as much money as humanly possible and scale as fast as humanly possible, then we're not here for it. And like that part really grinds me a lot about our space sometimes, is because it's like we say one thing, but like, do we really back that? No, because when someone says, hey, I'm just gonna, do one-on-one, and like, I'm really like valuing like a lot of like the margins I have and the flexibility I have and whatever, that's like, oh my gosh, such a thing. And I quite honestly, I think most coaches would say to you, you have a block.
Right. That was part of like this whole wrangling thing, because,
yep.
One of the things that is said a lot, right, is, oh, you need to change your mindset around group coaching and how that can create results, kind of thing. And so it's like wrangling with this, where it's like, do I really have to change my mindset around that? Like,
or is it a mindset, or is it just like a core value or whatever, right?
Exactly. But I think you're right. Like, and there's no one person, like, it's not like this is like, oh, there's this person out in the industry doing this, but our industry, when you said that, I was kind of laughing. It's like, you can have anything you want as long as it looks like this, right?
Exactly.
Like Henry Ford, you can have any color as long as it's black. But I can't remember where I was going with that now.
Yeah. Well, I think just like saying that, like, yeah, it's like, do you have to change your mindset, or do you have a block? Yes. Or is it like, oh wait, no, this is just like like, cause that's something I had to personally work through a lot too, when I kind of picked one-on-one, is like, and I got some feedback, that it's probably just like a mindset block that I was having. And I was like, I don't know, I'm pretty good at like being willing to look at my own shit, and no matter how many ways I look at this, like I just don't fucking want to. Yeah. Which to me is different. Like for me, a block is when I want to do something and I have something standing in my way so I can't, versus like I just don't fucking want to, which is totally different, right?
Right. That's exactly it. So like absorbing that message of like, oh,
that's exactly, yes. Sorry, Jess just said it. There's a big difference between I can't and I don't want to. That's exactly it, Jess. Yep.
Right. And I love how you said that. It's like, well, is this something I want? And I'm in fear, or there's something, a belief that I have that I need to work through, versus for me, it was really this realization that like, this just isn't what I want. Right. So there's no kind of like mindset shift to make there, when I'm like, fundamentally, I'm like, I love one-on-one. My clients get the best results that way. This is actually why I started coaching in the first place. Like all of that. Right.
And it's even like you realize like as a buyer, you loved one-on-one the most.
Right.
Too.
Exactly. So like I, part of scaling my business, like, well, let me go and like join a mastermind and see. And I was like, I don't even really love being in the mastermind, like in that, a lot of masterminds are kind of group coaching programs that are called masterminds. So I just kind of didn't loved that experience. There's nothing wrong with it or anything like that. But for me, it's like, I don't want to be coached that way. And I don't want to coach my clients that way. So
Right.
what am I actually doing here?
Yep, totally. Yeah, okay. So Catherine said, how did you determine if it was mindset versus values? I think that's exactly what we were saying. Basically, like do I want to, and there's, like Laura said, fear in the way or something coming up, or do I just literally at the end of the day not want to? I think both Laura and I in our journeys around this both did do group coaching programs, like in our businesses. Like I ran a group coaching program and so did Laura. And like, I do think that is helpful sometimes to try the thing. I remember that's a conversation you and I had quite a bit, Laura, of like, we're looking at this as an experiment versus like this has to be the thing forever. And so sometimes it's helpful to be like, cool, let me try a group program. And then no, and I personally, knew pretty quickly after trying it a couple of times, like, oh, I didn't want to, but that was also helpful, I think, to prove that it wasn't actually a mindset issue, but to be like, nope, I've literally done the thing. I just don't want to do it again.
Yes, that was one of the things you really helped me see, because that question, I think that it was Jess that asked around, like, is it me or is it like the mindset block? Like that can be hard, but when you sit with it, and Lacey said to me, like, there's that difference between, do you want the result, right? So like Lacey was like, well, do you want to be coaching again? Because like, I was sort of saying like, oh, I don't know about do you want to be group coaching again? Because I was saying I don't know about launching, like it's just not really my thing. And Lacey's like, well, do you want the result, right? Because that's where it was so helpful. It's like, well, do I want to be coaching people in that way? Do I want to be running that program again?
Right. Like, because we can work on getting you through the launch if what you ultimately want is the thing after it.
Right. And I think that was such a helpful thing, is like, if you want the result, right, then I think you can see it's probably more of a mindset piece to work on. If you like literally don't want the result, then you might recognize it's more of a values piece.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Jordan said it's basically like round peg, square hole thing, not a mindset thing. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Julianne says, as a buyer, I love one-on-one too. Yeah. I mean, like, and that's just okay. Like, I think that, it's like, that's such a thing we make wrong in our space too, almost, is like, everyone feels like if they want to grow, they should be like getting in the room with all these other people. And like, there's something to be said for that. Like, I mean, I have no downside to that either, but I think it's just that same thing of like, the narrative is this is what you're supposed to do versus what do you like best? How do you function best? How do you coach best? How do you receive coaching the best? Like, can we just have that conversation more is kind of what we're saying, right?
Mm-hmm. I always say like the industry narrative is so like black and white, yet we're all humans and like live in the nuance, really.
Yes, 100%. So what does it look like to kind of step back from all that? Like tell everyone that piece in terms of like, okay, so yeah, great, I have all these realizations, but like, what does it look like to decide if I'm going to even like, scale down my team or go back to one-on-one? And like, how did you kind of manage the practical pieces of that with the idea of like, what is everyone going to think, since I did so much to prove it,
I think it's funny, like the biggest thing in my whole business journey has always been mindset. I think like for me, like strategy and like taking action and like making those decisions, like that's not the challenge for me. So I think like taking care of some of those like practical pieces, I find that, that's fairly straightforward, but it's like you said, it's that mindset piece, just like it was right at the start of the journey about who am I to be the kind of person who does this and all of those kinds of things. Again, here it was like, well, how do I view myself? Like, what am I standing for here? I think it was really like, for me, just coming back to like that initial why I started this business in the first place. I realized like I could be the beacon for people who want to do it their way, right? So some of my clients are scaling their businesses through group coaching, through masterminds, through memberships. and they love it. That's their way.
Yep.
But I get to be this beacon of, because what happens is people, and you speak about this all of the time too, but like we end up with this business and we're like, I built this thing and I don't really love it. It's successful. It's hitting all those markers, but like, what is that worth if in the end, like you don't even want to show up for it? Like, honestly, it's just replicating that, for a lot of people, that life that we left in corporate or some sort of day job.
And it's even more unsustainable because like when you're in corporate, like I think it's easier to kind of like stay there for a long time. But I think when you build a business that you don't like, you're going to let go of it. Like I've seen it time and time again. It doesn't matter how much money you make. It doesn't matter like how big it's gotten or whatever. If it is almost impossible to stay that motivated as an entrepreneur if you just don't fucking like what you're doing.
Right. It's like, because you get to that point, you're like, it sounds ridiculous. Someone who's like wanting to like get fully booked for the first time, this like conversation, just this sentence here probably isn't going to resonate, but like it gets to this point where you're like, it's not even worth the money. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't even want to launch to like get that result kind of thing. Like, I don't care. It's so unsustainable, right? And like, what's that doing to like your nervous system, like everything? And so for me, it was this realization that like, I get to do it my way, in the way that I want, and I can still create exceptional results, have an amazing life, right? And have this business and have this incredible income, right? But really do it on my own terms. So I really started to see like the space, although we kind of say that, a lot of the space is kind of saying that, the reality is you get inside these programs and people are working like really hard and all of the time, and they've filled out their whole 40-hour week. And, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. But, like they're launching all of the time, they're burning themselves out. It's like, well, I get to be the beacon of, having the business you love and the life that you love.
Yep.
And that was kind of really that realization, is that how I stepped into that was recognizing, well, there's a whole group of people out there who are seeking that. And I get to be kind of the leader of that message, instead of this, traditional kind of, as much as it is traditional in the coaching space, but this kind of norm.
Well, I think what you're saying that's so true is that like where we get it wrong, I think, in our space is like, yes, have whatever life you want, but like the only path to that is make as much money as possible. Like it's basically this idea of like having as much money as possible is the only thing that gives you the life you want. And I think that's what you kind of dismantled, where you're like, yes, I want to make like a great income and I want to like support my family, but like there are so many other elements to life, like the time freedom, like doing work I love, like having flexibility, all of that actually make the greatest, grandest life, right? Versus this idea of like, like the rest of my life can be in shambles, but if I'm making X amount, then I'm like living the dream. Like that's not a thing, right?
Right. And just like, I feel like this could be like a whole different conversation for like another day, but also like using our business to, how do I say this? Almost like there's this belief that like your entire income needs to come from your coaching business or your business, right? And let's like build out the passive arm, build out the this, build out that. And I kind of laugh sometimes, because I'm like, even a passive product in a coaching business still requires so much work. Like it's not
that word is just incorrect. Yeah.
Right. Whereas I'm just like, well, what if I just like invest some of my income from my coaching business? We call shares, stocks, shares, like, right? What if I'm just investing there and like building up that, and like over the long term, I'm also building up like a true passive stream of income. And, like almost like, it's almost like that feels wrong, that like, oh, we're going to build like this holistic kind of like wealth, vision for ourselves and have income from all of these things. My coaching business can be the arm for that. But I feel like almost it's like, oh, well, like you don't invest in stocks and shares, you like build out a passive product in a way. And I just think, for me, that realization where it was like, look, what's the difference for me, honestly, between like a 30K month and a 50K month? Like, what is that actually going to change in my life? Like, okay, maybe I can go to the shopping mall and like buy, something super luxe that month or whatever, but it genuinely just wasn't going to make a massive difference. I know that sounds ridiculous, but like, the truth is, once you reach a certain point and your needs are being met and you're in overflow, for me, I was just like, well, I mean, of course, if someone came to my door and was like, here's an extra 20K this month, I would obviously like take it. But I didn't need to like rush at building that, because it wasn't going to change my life. So I think there's that piece there kind of too, that I can't even remember how we got onto this, but like that's so important, is that for me, the realization that it wasn't actually going to change my day-to-day, it wasn't going to change my life. So like, why am I going out and creating this kind of all of this work to like prove in the space that I'm this person, even though it's probably going to make my life, at least in the short term, harder.
Exactly. Morgana said, love this conversation. I had 3 businesses and stepped out of 2 of the collaborations last year because it was giving me 3 times of the things I don't love and much less time for my zone of genius and joy. Good for you. Hi, Lynn. She said, got here, but got the time wrong, so I'm really late. But hi, thank you for being here. Jess says, Laura, can we be besties? This is exactly where I'm at too. Yes. I think you guys would click really well. But yeah, I think like that is such a point. Like, and I think that a lot of people don't say this because the marketing is make more money. And so it's like really unattractive if you're like, hey, once you get to a certain point, more money might not do that much for
I
you.
almost feel like bad saying it. I'm like, oh, can we say this? Of course we can, right? But like,
but it's weird to be in that situation, and it's weird to have that conversation because it's so not the norm. But I totally agree with you. Like, I have almost zero interest in having passive income in my business because I have passive income elsewhere from the money that this business makes. And it is far fucking easier than what passive income looks like in this business, And I think that that's sort of a theme here that I think we can kind of wrap up with and really speak to, which is this idea that like, the online space tells you your business is everything. It's what proves your worth. It's what makes you happy. It's where all your income has to come from. It's where every egg is in this one basket. And I think what you did such a great job of like realizing and kind of stepping out of the matrix of is to be like, nope, this is one egg in a much bigger basket that I'm holding that includes investments, that includes feeling completely enough in my life, that includes freedom and flexibility and like all of these things that like I can't get just from my business, that I actually get in part by building a business that supports all of this, right?
Right. And that's almost, almost like a lot of the industry is like your business is your life kind of thing. Whereas like the business for me enables a broader life kind of thing. That's kind of how I view it. But I think that's a shift in terms of like, well, my business, allows me to have this holistic life without kind of trading off health, without kind of trading off time with the family, all of those different pieces. I love how you put that. That's really good.
So good. Not me, but what you said. Morgana said, love this too. We invest our money into other places that are truly passive income. Yeah. And it's beautiful to build a business that funds that. Like, I know Laura, you and I in our work together have figured out like, how much do you want to be putting toward passive stuff? And how do we make sure there's like a line of that coming through the business? But it's so cool because it feels like the business is contributing to something broader instead of being like the whole thing. Like there's too much pressure. And I think that's what you were experiencing is like, when it's the whole thing, the pressure gauge just turns all the way up and we start to crumble under that pressure because it's not really ever giving us more of what we want. Like you said, like, okay, maybe it gives us the difference between 30K and 50K, but like at the end of the day, so what if the rest isn't in place, right?
Right, exactly. And I just had this realization, like, who knows what we're going to be wanting to do in 5 or 10 years time. Like, it's so easy. What I've realized in my life is what I thought I wanted to do when I was 20 was different to what I
Yes.
wanted to be doing once like my family came along, like 10 years later when I was 30. And like, who knows like how, you know, how this space is going to be, what we individually want to be doing in like another 10 years time. And so it's almost like using your business as a vehicle
Yep.
to give you that choice, because that for me was like, well, what if in 10 years time I want to be doing something else, or, you know, I don't know, whatever, like, I don't even know, but like almost seeing the business as a vehicle to create much greater flexibility and freedom over time as well.
So good. Oh, I love that. Well, I could like keep going on this forever because I'm like obsessed with this conversation, but we will wrap it up. Remember, if y'all commented, we will pick a winner for the $100 gift card tomorrow, but Laura obviously does one-on-one as evidenced by this conversation. So just tell everyone if they're like looking for that support, or if they want to reach out to you, where can they find you, follow you, all of that kind of stuff. If Jess wants to be your bestie, where can she find you?
Yes. I find the easiest place to like connect one-on-one is Instagram. So I'm on Laura J. O'Hagan on Instagram. You can send me a DM if you want to have a chat about what it looks like to be supported, working together. I've got a Facebook group as well, which has lots of trainings and lots of resources, which is the Coaches Collective. So that's a great place if you kind of want to explore more about what I'm about and all of that. That's a great place to come and connect as well.
So good. Thank you so much for just like being willing to do this. Again, I know we always have these conversations behind the scenes, but it's like really helpful to have it in front of the scenes. And I think this really serve people, but thank you for being willing to be transparent on that, because I think that this is the exact problem is a lot of people go through this and then they're like, oh, but I can't actually tell people this. And so thank you for just telling people this.
Right. Like we can't actually talk about this.
Right.
It's so true.
It's almost like I was watching Harry Potter earlier today, but it's almost like don't say the name Voldemort. You know what I mean? It's like you can have this, but don't talk about it, you know, and you're like, oh,
I can't relate to Harry Potter. I'm so sorry.
Any of my Harry Potter people will be like, I got you.
Right. But I think that's something that you've always been so great at, is like allowing these real conversations through like your podcast, through your live streams, right? Just like bringing people in on the real and being transparent about not just what's happening that people can see, but what's also happening behind the scenes. And I think until you see that, it's really hard to know. So I think that's such great work that you're doing too.
Oh, thank you. Well, I love you. I appreciate you being here. Definitely follow Laura, especially if this resonated for you today. I think that she is having way more of these conversations in her own space. So please. Yes. Thank you, Lindsay. Yes. He who shall not be named. Thank you. Way more conversations in Laura's space. Maybe after we jump off, if you could, I'll tag you, since it won't let me tag you, but maybe you could just put like your group, your Instagram, whatever, for people to access easily.
Awesome. Love it. And yes, this is just to add to that, this is more and more clients are coming to me realizing this too. So it's funny, you go on your own process, and then this year it's been a theme with some of my clients where they're just like, I've got this business I don't love. So just, I want that message to be, if you're experiencing that, you're not alone.
Yes, that's so good and so important. And also like no shame in that. Like this is how we learn. It's not like, oh, you got something wrong. It's like you build the thing and then you learn along the way. So like no shame in that game if that's your experience.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful to be here. And thanks to everyone for joining in on the conversation. It's been awesome.
Thanks, guys. We love you. And I will see you next week. And remember, next week I will be with Sabrina, me, and the Golden Ticket coachee. So I think that'll be fun for y'all. So make sure to join us then, and we'll be at 1:00 next Monday. All right. Bye, guys. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.